Hi, everyone. We're just going to give it just another minute or so before we start, just to give everyone else a chance to jump on before we get started. All right, I think we'll go ahead and get started. So hi, everyone, and welcome to the informational webinar for the Science Synthesis Prize. My name is Noah Kobayashi, and I'm the prize admin for this one. And today I'll be covering a variety of information that you need to know for your submission to the prize. So before we get too far into things, I wanted to go over a few housekeeping items. So the first one, the webinar is being recorded and it will be shared on HeroX in the following days. Um, you're automatically muted upon joining the webinar, and you'll stay muted throughout the webinar. But if you have any questions, please feel free to use the Q&A chat box to put in your questions, and we'll answer those at the end. I've also got a team member on the call with me who might be answering questions in the meantime. Please use the chat feature to add any comments and share input. And then also, and lastly, you can adjust your audio through the audio settings. If you're having issues, you can also join by dialing in and listen on your phone. And that can all be found in the registration confirmation email. So just a few housekeeping items before we get started. And so for the agenda today, I'll be giving a couple of different overviews. We'll start with the American Made program. Then we'll jump into an overview of the Office of Electricity. Then we'll jump more into the prize. I'll do a really brief overview of the Science Synthesis Prize specifically. And then we'll go over what your submission package looks like. We've also got a power connector available, and I'll talk a little bit about that. And then again, we'll leave some time at the end for any questions that you might have. So first things first, let's jump into an overview of American Made Challenges and the American Made program. So the American Made program is really proud to host the Science Synthesis Prize, and happy to count it among one of our many challenges. The American Made program is powered by the U.S. Department of Energy, or DOE, as you might hear me reference them as throughout this webinar, and it's administered by the National Renewable Energy Lab, or NREL. And the American Made program serves as the fast track to participating in the clean energy economy, as it aims to incentivize innovation through prizes, training, teaming, and mentoring, while also connecting the nation's entrepreneurs and innovators to America's national labs and the private sector. So the American Made program started in 2018 with just a single prize. Today, our program has grown over to 75 unique prize challenges and over 450 organizations. And we've provided more than $400 million in cash prizes and support. So thanks to rapid timelines, prizes really fast track your product development from years to months by enabling these really rapid innovation cycles. And again, creating those partnerships that connect entrepreneurs to the private sector and to the US DOE National Laboratory Complex. And so one of the questions we get pretty often is, how is a prize different than a grant, or why not just do a grant instead? That's a pretty common thing that we hear. So we've got this to try and give some information if you're new to prizes and you've never heard of them. So as you can kind of see, the grant process is roughly summarized on the left. There's quite a few steps involved there, and it's got lengthy applications. There's milestone negotiation, reimbursements, and if you were to change something in your, in your grant and in your scope, you kind of have to restart some of this process to get it approved and keep going. And so kind of overall, the grant process can be incredibly arduous and time consuming. And then when you compare that with the American-made prize structure, which is on the right side of the graph, you can see not only is it much simpler and faster, uh, the prize structure actually awards you for work that's already done. So rather than jumping through the hoops of all the grant process, you simply need to achieve the predefined goals that's listed, in this case, in the science synthesis official rules, and complete the submission package. That's your work already done. Once we get submissions in, and we've reviewed them, and DOE, who is the ultimate decision maker, finalizes who are the winners. We notify all the winners, and then we send you the checks. And these checks are for cash. They allow you to use the funds as needed. You don't have to come back and negotiate with us on how these funds are to be used. It's really, the funding is there for you to use it as you see fit and make the most out of that funding for your innovation, and in this case, submission. So I also want to take a second to quickly introduce the Office of Electricity, as I know some of you might be new to working with the Office of Electricity, or even the Department of Energy in general. So the Office of Electricity, again, falls under the Department of Energy, or DOE, and it primarily focuses on the grid system itself, including the components, the control, and the operations of that system, and managing loads while also integrating the grid edge resources. So the Office of Electricity works a lot with the three offices listed on the left side of the graphic. So that's EERE, which is the Energy Efficiency and Renewable Energy Office, the Nuclear Energy Office, and then FECM, which is the Fossil Energy and Carbon Management Office. And then on the right side of the graph, again, working a lot with EERE on loads and distributed generations portion of the grid. And so really the Office of Electricity can be thought as the bridge between the load generation and the power supply of the grid. And so while there's, a handful of topic areas that the Office of Electricity focuses in on, the Science Synthesis Prize really centers around OE's focus of transmission reliability and renewable integration. So as renewable energy technologies are developed and integrated into the electric grid, there are often a lot of new opportunities and challenges that really have to be addressed in order to maintain, grid reliability and continue the growth of that renewable energy. So with the Science Synthesis Prize, focusing on identifying these various opportunities, different challenges and investment areas related to the US grid, OE's goal is to accelerate renewable energy integration and address the challenges for grid modernization and decarbonization. So with the in-depth research and analysis done by the competitors, the Science Synthesis Prize hopes to not only create a new area of literature, but also to provide key findings to be utilized by the Office of Electricity in the near future. Again, particularly as it relates to the ever-growing integration of renewable energy. So with those kind of two overviews of American Made and the Office of Electricity covered, let's jump into a little bit of an overview of the Science Synthesis Prize. So the Science Synthesis Prize is a $125,000 prize and aims to have competitors analyze the renewable energy landscape and practice in order to highlight, again, those key opportunities, challenges, and investment areas to achieve grid modernization and decarbonization. Again, as we likely all know, new renewable energy technologies are constantly being developed, constantly being deployed into the grid, but there still exist these new opportunities and even new challenges that have to be addressed. So in the Science Synthesis Prize, competitors will develop an in-depth research paper that really accurately synthesizes the current state of the art in the theory and practice of renewable energy integration, um, highlights any current and future opportunities, challenges, risks, and areas of investment, proposes how these solutions could be best communicated to the industry. And then lastly, having been informed by decision scientists, how can these identified opportunities and challenges really be addressed? So that's a little bit of what the Science Synthesis Prize goals are. We also want to take a second to realize that in developing a in-depth research paper, we understand, we being the Office of Electricity and the American Made program, we want to recognize that competitors may wish to take their paper beyond the prize and submit it to a scientific journal. And so while competitors are absolutely encouraged to do so, we do ask, and you must abide by the following. So the first one is that competitors may not submit their paper to a journal for review until the prize has closed and winners have been announced. So this goes that you can't take your paper and submit it to the prize and to a journal at the same time. You also cannot submit a journal or sorry, submit a paper that's already been reviewed by a journal into the prize as well. It has to be entirely new. And then secondly, if you do go the route of trying to get your paper published from the prize, you must include the following disclaimer in its entirety in your paper. I won't go through and read the whole thing. You can find this disclaimer in the official rules doc on HeroX. And then I also want to go over some of the eligibility for this prize. So the prize is open to individuals, teams of individuals, private entities, that's both for-profits and nonprofits, as well as non-federal government entities such as states, counties, tribes, municipalities, and academic institutions. Any of those are eligible to compete in the prize as long as you meet all the rest of the requirements and eligibility requirements as well. So a couple of them being a competitor is only allowed to submit a single application. Academic institutions must be based in the US. Similarly, if you're a private entity, you must be incorporated and maintain a primary place of business within the US. Individuals competing as part of that incorporated entity may participate if they're legally allowed to work in the US. And then an individual prize competitor or group of competitors who are not part of that incorporated private entity must all be US citizens or legal permanent residents. So this is just a few of the prize eligibility requirements. Again, please read the official rules document to make sure that you meet all of them. And again, you're going to hear this probably a few times throughout this webinar, but please read the rules. It can be found on the resources tab on the HeroX page. We've also got it on our AmericanMadeChallenges.org website. So a couple different places you can find it. Again, this will have the exact publication requirements and that disclaimer language that you're required to include if you're going to be submitting it to a journal. And then it will also have the full list of eligibility requirements and anything else you need to know about the prize. It's all in the official rules doc, so I really encourage all competitors to really read through that. I'm really only highlighting a few aspects of the prize in your submission requirements. So again, reading the full rules to make sure you're not missing anything and that you're eligible for the prize. Moving into what your submission package will look like for this prize. So Um, you're going to be submitting three main things here. The first one being author biographies, a cover page, and then a research paper that addresses four key points. And I'll go into each of these more specifically in a moment. So starting with the biography, we're asking for a half-page summary per author of the research of your paper that highlights any current and previous contributions to the energy industry, as well as any other additional professional background information that you think would help highlight their experience and their knowledge. Again, that's going to be a separate submission than your research paper. When you go to submit on HeroX, you'll see that it'll ask for author biographies in one section to upload, and then another section will actually be the cover page and your actual research paper. And then your cover page, again, pretty standard here, but it must include your research paper title, your team name, a complete list of all authors and project members, and please include their names and any links to professional online profiles, such as something like LinkedIn, any other partners, if you have any, and then lastly, your city, state, and 9-digit zip code. We really do need that 9-digit zip code for reporting to DOE. And now kind of the bulk of your submission, which is, probably more intuitive, is your research paper. So there are 4 mandatory questions that we are asking you to address in your research paper. You'll have 6,000 words to answer each of these 4. So the first one kind of talking about current industry outlook. So the question is what is the state of the art in the science and practice of renewable energy integration? Also addressing opportunities and challenges. So what opportunities and challenges exist currently and in the near future for accelerated integration of large-scale renewables? We also would like competitors to analyze what interventions and investments are needed to meaningfully leverage these opportunities and address any challenges and blind spots within the industry or theory or practice as it relates to this integration of large-scale renewables. And then lastly, talking about the industry impact, how can the presented opportunities and challenges that you've highlighted in your paper be addressed in a way that is informed by decision sciences and communicated to stakeholders. So whether that's Department of Energy, that's industry, academia, there's a lot of different stakeholders involved there. So how can all of that be addressed to them and communicated to them so that we can meaningfully address a lot of these opportunities and challenges that you highlighted? So some of the tips and tricks: remember your audience. It's primarily the U.S. Department of Energy, but we will be bringing in industry experts to review. Be specific in answering each of these questions. This isn't portioned by any means. And then please pay attention to the word count. We are super strict about the word count. If you write over 6,000 words, our reviewers won't read past that 6,000 word limit. So just something to be super cautious of and be aware of it. We don't want you writing 7,000 words and having your key argument being in that last 1,000 that isn't going to be read by our reviewers. So please keep it under 6,000. And then additionally, there are a few additional optional topics that competitors can choose to address. Again, these aren't required by any means, but we feel as though that if these questions were answered, submissions that have answered them are likely to result in a stronger, more well-rounded solution or submission. However, if you choose to answer these questions, the word limit does not increase. You must keep it under 6,000 words, whether you address these additional questions or not. I want to just make sure that part's really clear. Again, no extra word limit if you go to answer these additional 3 questions. But the first question is, talking about stakeholder engagement. What stakeholders from within the renewable energy industry and from other industries need to collaborate to bring about the greatest impact? So again, kind of that last point about the last question on the previous slide about industry impact, taking it a little bit step further and talking about, beyond the renewable energy industry and overall industries, which ones need to come together to really address those opportunities and challenges that you've highlighted so far. The second optional question being, what key technologies or innovations are still needed for large-scale integration of renewable energy resources? And then lastly, the third optional question is talking about the long-term vision. And so it's, what is the long-term vision of renewable energy integration in the United States? So again, a few different optional questions that you can work into your argument, and into your research paper. Again, 6,000 words is your absolute maximum limit, whether you address these questions or not. And then the last couple notes about your research paper. The first one being formatting. So all your papers should be double spaced, 1-inch margins with headings, subheadings, and subheadings should be formatted according to this following example. Again, these slides will be made available later on. This is also in the official rules document, so there are plenty of examples available, but please follow this format when you are putting together your research paper. We've also got plagiarism. Please don't plagiarize your papers. They may be screened for plagiarism against any previously published work. Please just don't do that. Please make this your own thoughtful effort. And then similarly, in terms of ethics and AI, please transparently disclose the use of any artificial intelligence tools, such as ChatGPT, Gemini, any large language models, any of those, or anything that you think falls under the category of artificial intelligence. Please transparently disclose that to us. And so then lastly, this is what you should see when you go to the Hero X page. You'll click on solve this challenge when you're ready to submit your submission. That's where, again, you'll upload your author biographies in a single file, and then separately in a single file, your cover page and your actual research paper. And you'll answer a few questions about you and your team. And your submissions are due by August 30th at 5 p.m. Eastern. We do not accept late submissions. So please make sure that you get your submissions in early and worst case on time. But the earlier that you can get this in, the better. That way, if you have any issues, you can contact us and we can help you resolve them, rather than if it's 4:59 Eastern and you're trying to reach out to us, we may not be able to resolve it in time. So the earlier that you can submit on HeroX, the better. And then again, your submissions can be entered on that HeroX website down there at the bottom, herox.com/science synthesis. So the last thing that I wanted to go over is our power connector. So the American Made program has partnered with the University of Arizona Center for Innovation. They're available for application assistance. So if you have questions about eligibility or submitting or something like that, they are available to help you. We will be posting updates on the HeroX page for links to monthly office hours by University of Arizona. We refer to them as UACI. And then similarly, you can also schedule any one-on-one meetings with a UACI mentor or program manager if you'd like to talk about your submissions. And again, they're available to help you. So please feel free to reach out to them and, you use that service as needed. And then lastly, if you have any questions or need any other further clarification about the prize, please don't hesitate to reach out to us at Science Synthesis Prize at nrel.gov. We're always monitoring that inbox. We'll get back to you as soon as we can if you have any questions, clarification on rules, anything like that, or if you have any issues with submitting, that's the inbox to reach out to us and let us know that you're having an issue on HeroX with getting your submission in. Again, the earlier that you can submit, the better. So please try to get them in early and at worst case on time. Again, that deadline is August 30th at 5 p.m. Eastern. So with that, I appreciate everyone's time this morning or even potentially early afternoon if you're on the East Coast. And I'll open it up to any questions that anyone has. Again, please feel free to use the Q&A chat box to put in your questions or the normal chat and let us know. So it looks like a few questions are coming in. So there is a question about software solutions. I guess I'm not fully understanding the question. If you are saying that there are software solutions as part of, addressing some of the opportunities and challenges, I think that's fine. But again, your submission should really be around those four questions that we've identified. And again, those are listed in the official rules document as what to be answering. But again, if a software solution is theoretically part of the answer, that's fine, but it shouldn't be the only thing that you discuss in your paper. There's another question on the review and award notification. How long is that period? Typically, we have been seeing around 2 months, maybe 3 months on reviews and awards. Please refer to the HeroX timeline. If you go to the HeroX Science Synthesis page, there is a timeline section that we always keep up to date so you can see when your submissions are due and when we have announcements scheduled. But in general, we're around the 2, maybe 3 month mark to get reviews and notify winners. After that, it's a matter of just going through the payment process to send you all the checks. There is another question about the 6,000 word, including references. It does not include references or any footnotes or links like that, just the main body of it. And again, there's another question, abstract references, captions. That 6,000 word limit does not apply to those, only the actual, meat or main part of your submission. References are excluded. So there's a question about how many awards. So we will be awarding 10 teams at $10,000 each. And then there is an additional almost bonus portion of it that well-received submissions and submissions that scored highly among our reviewers and with the Office of Electricity are eligible for an additional $5,000 bonus on top of it. There are only 5 of those available. So if you win, at a minimum, you're taking home 10K. At a maximum, you could be looking at an additional 5, so 15,000. There's a question about, would you consider solutions that accelerate the civil construction of underground power lines? again, I think if that's part of your answer to one of the questions, that's fine. But again, your submission should not be fully around that's the only solution and that's the only opportunity. The Office of Electricity is really looking for a overall approach to the electric grid, addressing multiple challenges, multiple opportunities, different areas of investment, that kind of stuff. So I wouldn't limit your answers to just a single solution. Again, the Office of Electricity is looking for a very overarching review and analysis of the industry. There's a question, does the research paper need to include simulation results? I guess I'm not sure what simulation results you're referring to, but again, if it's you've got something that can highlight what your anticipated solution could do, I think that's okay to include. Um, again, kind of previous, like the previous question, please just make sure your solution or your submission is covering a different couple aspects, again, as noted in the official rules. Doesn't look like there's any other questions or anything in the chat coming through. So I appreciate everyone's time today. Again, please reach out to us at Science Synthesis Prize at nrel.gov if you've got any questions. You can also post on the HeroX page. There's a forum there if you've got questions. Again, a couple different ways to reach out to us. So two other questions came in. Asking about the 6,000 word limit and solving the entire power grid. It's not necessarily we're asking you to solve the entire grid, but again, really trying to hone in on those what's the most impactful opportunities and or challenges that should be addressed to provide the greatest impact. You can steer your submission however you please, but again, we would say probably if you're just going to hone in on a single opportunity throughout your entire submission and just use 6,000 words to address that, that may not score the highest. So again, doesn't have to be super high level and solving the entire power grid, but again, you know, thinking about what are those really key opportunities, challenges, areas of investment that provide the greatest impact. There's a question about, is there a sample that could be shared? We don't have a sample document. Are you referring to a sample paper or as in a template? If you could put that question in there. Template. We don't have a template. I can check with the Office of Electricity to see if that's something that they would like to provide. And if so, we'll put that on the HeroX resources page and also put out an update. So please make sure you're following the page on HeroX to see any updates. And again, that's where that would be shared. All right, I think that's it. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great day.